This is so wild.
right? So
Yeah.
it actually all ties in together, which even I didn't realize when I went into the debate. Because if I'd known that, I would have made it much more succinct. But Connor Boyack brings this out.
100% exactly what you just said. I just had never I didn't put those two together.
So there's like three or four reasons why we will need the church. One is because I do think that if um, I think we're close to the prophesized quote unquote end times. I think it's, and I think it's a necessity. It's not even. I think it's a necessity even if you're secular.
But people are getting excommunicated. People are being chastised for teaching those truths, similar to Samuel the Lamanite.
This would have been a great YouTube back and forth. But anyway, that's where.
Well, it's probably recording, so I can send it to you.
Are you guys in Utah?
Um,
Are you in Utah?
yeah, we are. How'd you know?
Are you a Latter-day Saint?
I am.
Oh, me too.
Really?
Yeah, I just did a huge debate on Joseph Smith, and like 2 days ago. Right now, it's like 10,000 views or so.
What's
Yeah,
your
about him. About him. Do what?
what's your profile page? I want to find it.
Um, it's it was on my Twitter, so I think it's just Ruben Landon, not say first, middle, last, and you'll see it on my Twitter. Um, but long story short, Joseph's. So basically, people say, Matthew, on this rock I shall build the church. The only problem with that is that the passage right above it states that the that rock is revelation, because right above it says it is not by flesh and bone, but it revealed to you by my Father which is in heaven. And all of their denominations hinged their entire ideology on this daisy chain of Peter, James, and Paul keys. And so wait, what does the top say? Does it not let you see my account?
So I just barely. This is you here, correct?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought it was like blocking you from seeing my stuff. Um, so I was like, so then the only people that claimed that was first Moses, and then Jesus in this passage, and then Joseph Smith in DNC 62. So other than that, I don't even know what the debate is. Did I pin it? I forgot, but it's in a couple of places now. But I was like, so your whole premise of calling other people, calling us not Christian. First of all, Christian is Christ, the prefix, IAN is a suffix, but your whole everything falls flat on its face because the whole presupposition by which the creeds built your church is wrong. And
Uh-huh.
Joseph Smith was the first one to say it is by an election made sure, or DNC 62, you shall dwell in the face of. And
Yeah.
so that was fun. So yeah, so I'm all over the place in terms of like, I think people, if anything, I think people probably support my insurance stuff because they like my other work that I do. And so they just like find me to like inspire. Like, I went super hard against. And so that came out of a post earlier today from the church, from because they tweeted this guy. And so I ran the stats because I'm like, apparently people have been wrong for 2,000 years. So we might want to look at some things again. Uh,
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. See, that's just kind of opened up a whole nother conversation, and
yeah, sorry
it's
about
kind
that.
of
I do
fun.
that a
No,
lot.
I genuinely like, and I love the dialogue we're having. I don't know if we're going to be a good fit for what you're looking for with our services, and that's totally fine. Like I'm more about building connections and relationships anyways. And you bringing up things like, and even as I look at your face, your Twitter, I'm more about learning now in this circumstance, learning more about you. I mean, you've run, how old are you? I'm gonna guess maybe between 30 to 35. Is that right?
I'm 33. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're about the same age. I'm 32. I turned 33 in October. Um, and I mean, you've done everything from run for the House of Representatives. You've moved from California to Texas. A lot of people are doing that nowadays for some reason, but
Yeah.
but then
Yeah,
as
yeah.
but then
Joseph Smith and
you're
I have parallel lives, and like, and I'm a new member, so I'm a new convert. I like it's been like a year and a half, and like, and so it's
really.
been increasingly mind blowing to me. Yeah, like my first.
How did you end up like what's your story of joining the church and why?
So okay, so I wrote a book called Remembrance. So I basically I was in Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism, and it's all in Hebrew. I don't speak Hebrew. And so I ended up writing. So I had a sequence of visions. It started first with like a quantum entanglement and what I call twin flames, or like eternal marriage. And then it spun into like the celestial kingdom, then densities. So it just ran and ran and ran. And then my second one, Remembrance Resurrection, is like the cover of it. It's in Hebrew with 72 names of God in Hebrew rather. And then it's got chains, and then it's Remembrance Resurrection. And then I wrote the first page, but then I stopped, and then I fell for Remembrance, and then something was like hypnotically drawing me to like look up Latter-day Saints again. And then I went. And so then they came back and they talked to me about the Liahona. Well, they were
Yeah.
talking to me about, the opening story, right? Gold plates or whatever. And I was like, where does he say that they're physical? And then that was its own controversy. Then they got into the Liahona, and then they were like, this gold ball, and according to your faith. And I was like, a gold ball that moves west and according to your faith. That's what I saw, that Moses couldn't see the face of the sun, and it started to morph into like, I guess a raw, I guess, or like a sphinx or a fire. And then at the face, it's like Joe, like Moses had to look away. And then Joseph Smith kind of picks up on that. But it's more so like the sun with the 72 names of God. And then they were like, because it's moving westbound, and they were like, what? So anyway, so it's been like this like ongoing mind-blowing thing, but now going to DNC 85, where he goes into like remembrance.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's been fascinating. It's been mind-blowing for me too, like every aspect of it. But that's how that happened. Um,
That's amazing. As I look at your profile here, I mean, only LGBT people that have brought others closer to Christ, but what does this mean?
how did that even come up? Because someone, oh, okay, so
Oh,
basically
Charlie
whenever like,
Bird, yeah. Charlie Bird,
yeah.
he's a
Right,
legend.
because a lot of people like Jacob Hansen then will be like super, first of all, you cannot find anything anti-LGBT in anything Christ said. But
Right.
but then I think someone, because on Twitter they're always trying to bash the LGBT community. A
Yeah.
lot of the LDSX does anyway.
Yeah.
And so then I actually, how did this start? Because this is from this morning, right? This is from this morning.
Yeah.
Um it started because I forgot, but oh, was it? No, because that post came out after I tweeted that. So I forgot how that came up, but basically someone said something about like LGBT, and so then I grabbed a list of people that are, maybe it was something about Charlie Bird. That's probably how it came up. So then I grabbed a
Hmm.
list of people that have, because coming from the spiritual community, I knew a lot of the spirit, like I knew Phil Good, for example, and I knew Teal Swan, and I knew some of those people in that
Hmm.
world. And so then I was like, I wonder how many LGBT people have brought people closer to Christ. And so then I started like, okay, well, I know the top ones that I know is Phil Good, Charlie Bird, which I think is who they were talking about. And then I had Blair White, and Blair White's coming to Christian Video. And that one, and so then it's like, this is 500 million people
That's
in
a
just
lot of
one
people.
year that LGBT community. So then I was like, so if by the fruits we shall know them. And we know that for 2000 years we had the rock incorrect. Maybe we should look at some of these sort of things, because then the question becomes, well, how are these people so effective at bringing people closer to Christ? And then that goes into
Hmm.
kind of the Heavenly Mother mysteries, and then like love and wisdom and love and light. So that's a whole nother kind of worms. That was not for
Hmm.
that post, but I think that's how that came up. Like,
So it sounds like you've been down a lot of different rabbit holes.
yeah, and so then I think after that I tweeted the Isaiah, like born of affliction and like or like transgressor from the wound, and refined by affliction. So yeah, it's been a doozy. It's been a fun morning.
Do
So I
you
forget.
do you ever watch the videos from Ward Radio?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
do. I have a lot, like there's like, I remember the first time I commented, they pinned my comment, but like I get into it with it a lot too sometimes, because like they go into like the different, which I agree, like the different locations, because we know that like Atlantis and Lemuria specifically, Lemuria and Nephilim were like in the
Affiliated.
pre-Atlantean
Yeah.
epoch with the pole shift. But we also don't talk about that either. So it kind of leaves like this, like, okay, where are you guys coming from? Where are you going with this? Because yeah, I mean, like we're all very passionate. So I
So
think,
are you referring to where the Book of Mormon took place? Is that what you're referring to,
yeah,
or
which I
something
agree. I
else?
mean, I do
Yeah.
think it's pre-Atlantean. But then the thing is like, well, then how come then it was it in the lifetime of Christ? I'm like, well, that's two different things, right? Because pre yeah, the Essenes came to America. We do know that for a fact. And even Lemurians are under Mount Shasta right now, which can be construed, I think, to be the Lamanites. But then, so there's two different things, right? Because there's only one Christ, meaning Christ is one essence. Jesus took on the Christ.
Yeah,
Um, and so then, so I think in part, the Book of Mormon Christ, I think, is pre-Atlantean before the pole shift. But then I also think Christ came to America afterwards. So I think there's like this. It's like Zarahemla means Zara means radiant, and Hemla means compassion. So so it becomes
hmm
another it becomes another mystery. It becomes like another.
hmm
So yeah. So it's been a con. Yeah. So yeah.
Are
So
you, so I assume you've heard of like the Heartland theory then?
um. I haven't looked a ton into it because when I first came into it, the people were tagging me on it because I made this whole thing about Lemuria. I forgot what it was, but I made a whole thing. Um, but then so like so then as I understand, it's like it was under. Yeah, well, you know what? I've heard the Heartland theory, but I'm confused because if it's the claim is after the pole shift, I get really confused as to how that would have happened.
I'm not
Like,
exactly sure. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by the pole shift, to be honest, and that's okay. I I mean, you could elaborate on that if you want to. Um, but the main theory behind the Heartland is just that the Book of Mormon took place around that they landed around Tennessee, that Nephi and Lehi land around Tennessee, then they made their way up, then Mississippi.
okay.
Um, and then they're basically, I mean, in Doctrine and Covenants, it talks about how the city Nauvoo was adjacent or on the opposite side of the shore to the land of Zarahemla.
Yeah, so I'm not okay. So I understand well, wait. Layman and Lamia I understand to be the story of Lucifer and the fall of Lucifer. And then Lehi and see, like I read it super because especially for
You read a lot differently then, don't you?
yeah, I think I do.
Yeah.
And I like someone was like, part of the thing that they try to say like Joseph Smith is not a prophet was like, oh, what he said about America. I was like, first of all, that actually did come true, and check the IMF and lawful money and the Universal Commercial Code. But the other thing they try to say was the yeah that this thing, and I was like, well, in D&C it says like not by blood, so there's a contingency that was broken, but I don't know like the modern details, right? So I don't know the cultural details because
Mhm.
people tag me on them. I mean, they don't, but
You
yeah,
find it, right? It pulls
yeah,
up your
yeah,
feed.
yeah.
Well, yeah, the mound builders and like this kind of goes, I mean, the mound builders were brilliant people where I mean, if you dig, there's a lot of mounds around like Ohio and Michigan. And I mean, if you're ever interested in like the theory of where the Book of Mormon took place, like there's a serpent mound where it's in the shape of a snake.
I had a
And
dream about
there's
Ohio something, and I thought it was so weird last night because I'm like, I don't know anything about Ohio, and I don't know why I'm thinking about it. So okay, so yeah, this is interesting.
so let me serp serpent mound, Ohio. And yeah, I mean the whole mound is shaped like a snake. And I mean there's lots of different evidence of the Book of Mormon taking place around this area, both from Joseph Smith. Like when Joseph Smith said, hey, to the missionaries, hey, go and preach to the Lamanites. The Lamanites went over into the Ohio, Michigan area. Or sorry, the missionaries went to the Ohio, Michigan
Yeah,
area to
yeah.
go and preach to the Indian tribes, which were descendants of the Lamanites. Um, but a lot of this I actually found through like I'm a member of the church, but I come from also a very different theology on the church.
You and I
Um,
both. Maybe from
and
different directions, but yeah, very different.
I mean, if like I get pretty bored at church on Sundays because I just don't think they don't talk about the substance like they need to.
Right. No, they don't.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
it's very dry. It's very light. Whereas for me, have you been to the temple? Have you been through the temple?
I haven't done the temple endowment, and people are like, "You need to do it. You need to do it." I haven't done it. I'm eager to do it. Like I saw the law of sacrifice before, before I went through the not the
Hmm.
temple ritual, but what it actually is and the nature of,
Hmm.
you go to the gym, your muscles rip, and you get spiritually stronger, mentally stronger, what have you, and it's an eternal law. Like it's you get spiritually fortified by temporal sacrifice, but I haven't gone through the actual rituals of it.
Yeah, I mean it's more symbolic than anything else.
Yeah.
I'm a temple worker actually. So I work in the temple. I worked in the temple this morning
Oh,
from
nice.
about 5 to 10 a.m. And then I jumped into my workday. Um, but I mean, much of the temple is basically getting to the point where we as individuals are able to seek for the light and knowledge
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I agree.
to be able to converse with the Lord. And I am of the belief that anyone who has a faith that, that we can all have an ether-like experience where we can actually speak to the Lord face to face. I've not gone to that point yet, but revelation can get you there. Um, but then through Ward Radio, because I used to watch Ward Radio all the time last year, they had a guest speaker come on.
I liked them a lot more last year. I feel like this year they've gotten, I don't know who their new sponsor, I don't know what it is.
I haven't watched any of their videos this year. Where
Yeah,
I
and last year I was pretty on it. Last year I was a lot more on it than this year.
What you should look into, it's called Zion Media.
I love Zion Media. I just sent him an email. Seth, I just emailed him
Seth, yep.
literally right now. Yeah,
Really?
like my last email is Seth. Oh my God, that's so funny.
That's so wild. Because I watch Zion Media every day.
Do you?
Um,
I was there on the live. Do you ever watch it live? Like when the premiere?
I have not been able to do much of the live. For me, it's more of something I watch when like my kids are. I have 3 kids,
Yeah.
so a lot of mine is more based on like I watch it between like 9 to 12 p.m. at night.
I love yeah, yeah.
But I mean the Menha records are really. Have you heard of those? The Menha records.
I haven't watched so like because uh Shad took over from Chain, right? Because Chain is doing
Shane's like doing the summer sale stuff right
yeah, yeah,
now.
yeah. I
Um,
haven't seen that. I haven't seen that one yet because right now we're on the Davidic Servant.
yeah, and the Davidic servant's really interesting. It doesn't it catches my eye, but I think we could guess and guess and guess who it is, right?
Right.
And it's not that I don't really feel like for me that's not super
It's not going to be
motivational. It's
yeah.
not getting me anywhere, right? But like if you go like if I could go back and if I had the time, I would go back and watch almost all of these. Like this is where this tells a story of the Book of Mormon happening in the in Americas. Um, like each of these go back and really tell quite like they have a story, but the Nemenhah records actually talks about it's another additional scripture of stuff that happened here around Utah during the times of the Book of Mormon.
Oh, well, so this is where pole shift gets really interesting actually, because so the theory of pole shift is that basically every 6,000 or so years the pole shifts. And so that's why you have all these
Hmm.
flood stories. And
Hmm.
so the last one would have been the crossover between Atlantis and Noah's Ark. So like as the pole shift, one
Interesting.
gets
Yeah.
covered and the other one gets, and part of what makes this so interesting in relation to what you're saying is because right now, today, we know that in Mount Shasta or in the West, we have the Lemurians still living like under the mountain that survived the last pole shift, right? So, in fact, it's called the Lemurian vortex. When you go into, if you want to Google Lemurian vortex,
Has this been proven? Like,
Lemuria has been proven, yes, because we have Google Lemurian Vortex, an actual, that's the name of the actual location. Lemurian, just put Vortex. See, that's the actual name of the location.
Okay.
And so Lemuria would have been around at the same time Atlantis would have been around in the last
Hmm.
whole shift epoch. And
Hmm.
then with it shift, so Egypt would have always been above water because Egypt had Sphinx, and then the Sphinx seems to have been an adaptation from a previous one, and we know that from like the water waves in like the body of the Sphinx, and then it's still upright today. So it's still above water today. It's still above water from the previous epoch. Um, no, if you want to look up the pole shift theory, do and it's got like it's fascinating and it's super entertaining. Do Wi-File's pole shift.
How do you spell the
Yeah,
Wi-Fi?
WHI, Wi-Files.
WHI.
Y, excuse me, Y.
Oh, duh. Like that?
You
Sorry.
know, like WHI, like how come? Like why WHY
I can't spell right now. HY.
files.
Okay.
Oh, I think it's called the CIA classified book of Adam and Eve. Yeah, it's that one. Yeah,
Uh,
that one. So
Have
that is
you
that
have you
kind of
watched have you watched from JFK to 9/11?
I haven't, but I'm not a big fan of that country. And I know like
Yeah.
a lot of people feel real controversial about not being a fan of Israel. But yeah, I mean, like there's a synagogue of Satan, in my opinion. I think it's really obvious, but I
Well,
haven't. No, that from
this is a really interesting documentary, and it's like 4 hours, but everything is a rich man's trick, and
there's a
it's
takeover. There's the overthrow of America
very
right there.
yeah, very very interesting. And yep, that's the overtake of America, like you said. But temporarily, yeah, massively weaken the
People,
husband.
it was a pretty wild debate. I can email it to you. I can send it to you. But it was yeah, people were really triggered because you know, Christians hinge their argument on the keys of Peter, James, and Paul. It's like that's not what it says. So you've been
Mhm.
wrong for 2,000 years. But we can
What do you mean? What do you
objectively
mean by that? What do you mean by that?
so the reason why people say that Latter-day Saints are not Christian is because they say that Peter, James, and John gave the keys to build a church based on Matthew 16:17, and those keys were given to Peter, and that Peter then allegedly established somehow the Catholic Church, and then everyone spin off, and the spin-offs
Hmm.
all claim the apostolic keys.
Yeah,
But Joseph Smith never claimed apostolic keys. Joseph Smith claims to be the Church of the Firstborn in DNC 76 by an election made sure in the pattern of natural law or in the pattern of baseline reality, so to speak. So
but
whenever I
but
point
to
it,
become a member of the Church of the Firstborn, you need to basically, like you're saying, have your calling election made sure, but you also need to actually practice the endowment of power. And
right, right,
like,
right. No, no,
yeah,
no. So,
yeah.
so for
No, and
sure.
I'm agreeing with you 100%. And it's just
Yeah, yeah,
very
yeah.
interesting to hear you say this. And you've only been a member for over a year. Like, it's very impressive.
Well, I had the same vision with Remembrance, so that's why I can like that's why I can kind of tell what like what's true and what's not because like I wrote a lot of the same thing. But but the thing is, Joseph Smith's whole claim is you should ask God yourself, which is what Jesus was saying in the passage of the rock. So so given that Jesus is the rock that Jesus is referring to in this case is revealed to you not by flesh and blood but by the Father, then Joseph Smith would have been the first one to be correct all this time as to
Mhm.
that interpretation. Going from Moses in the higher law to see the face of God to then Christ saying it will not be revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father which is in heaven. Upon this you shall build this rock. To then Joseph Smith and everyone who ran away with the keys of Peter or whatever they were saying. It was entirely on a false premise because it's not what Matthew 16:17 says.
Mhm.
So then that's where, but even members of the church were really triggered because they were like, well, the apostolic, like we've all been told about the apostolic. Well, fine, but show me where it is in scripture. Because I can tell you I can tell you where Joseph Smith said Church of the Firstborn and construed as a pattern of natural law in 76. I haven't seen anywhere that says anything about no daisy chain of keys from Peter, James, and John that were dropped off and then picked back up. Like I don't see that. But if it exists somewhere, I ask people to show me. I just haven't seen it.
So, and are you referring to when are you referring to the claim where Peter, James, and John came and restored the priesthood?
Right. Right. Okay. So I do believe that Joseph Smith restored the priesthood. I just don't know that. I just don't know how Peter, James, and John are particularly relevant because that's not how. Like Joseph going to restore the priesthood independent of Peter, James, and John because
Yeah.
in Matthew that's not what it's saying at all. It's saying it should be revealed to you upon the by the Father and upon this you should put the rock. So I have
Hmm.
no objection to that.
Yeah.
But I do object to the claim that Joseph Smith prescribed that Peter, James, and John build a church upon set keys because that's just not what Christ said.
Hmm. Which
Uh,
makes sense.
so they can be both true, and they can be both true within the Latter-day Saint universe, but it still nukes the other denominational claim because all of the other denominations claim or hinge their wagon on the apostolic keys, right? So if you remove the merit or the because I don't believe in 132 either, which a video came out immediately after that. But
132 about polygamy
yeah,
or
yeah. But in the video of 132 was really funny because it came out, I think, the next day from the debate. And they talk about providence and how providence relates to the originating jurisdiction of a claim. So I think
you're
in
referring to one DNC 132, right?
correct. Correct.
Yeah.
So a video came out by Still Mormon on Sunday. Yeah, Sunday right after it was crazy.
That's
So on
funny because
Sunday released
I've watched a little bit of Still Mormon too, but yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, no. So it came out immediately after my whole claim relates to the providence of the keys, right? So if there's no originating jurisdiction for the keys claim, then all the creeds fall flat on their face. Like they just
Hmm.
do. There's no like
Yeah.
they all just fall. Um, but Joseph Smith's claim of restoration relates to the order of Melchizedek or the Melchizedek priesthood, which is the election made sure. It relates to the promise of personal revelation. So Joseph Smith bypasses all the falsities that have been around even all this time, even to this day. Um, and so yeah, so a lot of so it triggered a lot of people, even on NARCAP, like some, which I do that a lot actually. But
Well,
um,
I would love I I'm like I feel like I'm pretty well versed in all this stuff and like I'm pretty awake. But like as you're explaining things, like I'm having a hard time even following along. So like if you like I'm catching almost about 50% of what you're saying, right? Like for example, you say like you don't you believe that 132 is fabricated. I actually believe the same thing. But I don't understand what you're saying about like I don't
the
understand
Providence.
exactly
Oh yeah, no, no, because I
the
was just about the video
provenance
that
and
came
all
out
these other
right. That came
things,
out right
right?
after my video, so that came out yesterday. So that's not even the only reason about Providence is because in that video of Still Mormon, they explain what I was trying to explain, but it was hard for me to explain on the Joseph Smith one. But because I just kept saying original jurisdiction. So Still Mormon in that one, they start out by explaining Providence.
Like
So
which one? Hidden in plain sight?
yeah, this one that came
That's
out
so funny
this
because
week.
I have that saved to go and watch this evening.
Oh yeah, no, do it, do it, do it, do it. Because if you watch my debate, you'll see how they become interconnected. And
And
so
where's your debate?
I think okay, so if I can share my screen with you,
This is so wild.
it is
Dude,
until you realize it's not, and then it's
I
self.
know. No,
Yeah,
but I talked just FYI, like I talk to insurance agents all over the country every day. And like never have I been able to have such dialogue with any agent. So glory be to God because it's just fascinating for me.
yeah. No, I this has become. That's why when I was like, I retired from neoliberalism. I'm like, I couldn't even if I wanted to, I can't. Like, it's just, it's obviously not. It's like, what is it like anxious, not anxious force, like anxious cause, an anxious cause. It's like that's where my life's become because none of this was by my personal election in a materialist way.
Of
Okay,
course.
share
I'll allow
screen.
you to share your screen. Okay, there you go.
Okay,
I'll
so
stop sharing mine too. That should help.
X.com. I've gone against the family proclamation, which is also triggering for people, but I don't have an issue with it. But it's just the claim of not leading you astray is very different than the claim of the whole truth. They're just not the same thing.
Can
But
you not leading you astray versus what do you mean by that? Like the promise
so
won't lead you
someone not
astray?
leading you astray is a different claim and a different promise than someone giving you the entire truth. So the family proclamation will not lead you astray,
Yeah.
but it's also a different claim than integrating power, light, love, and wisdom, or the masculine and the feminine. Like they're just different. And the path of least resistance, I think, is yeah, a marriage would. Oh my God. Oh, here it is. Okay, so I think this will make sense of what I'm saying. So wait, share. Oh wait, here it is. Can you see it?
Now you have to share it. Okay,
Okay,
now I can
there it
see
is.
it. Yeah.
So this is Matthew. This is where everyone says that the church got the keys. Like so, this is where Catholics will say and Orthodox everyone will say, well, this is the keys, right? The rock.
The rock, yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you follow here, an answer said, for flesh and blood has not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock which is the Father in heaven, you should build a church. That church, which is the rock, which is revelation, not
Which makes
not
sense.
not
That makes sense to
apostolic
me.
keys.
Yeah.
Correct. Right. But
And
apparently in 2,000 years,
the rock should have never been assumed to be put on Peter. I mean, it should always be Christ.
right. But the church says, and this is why everyone was triggered, that was the Catholic and Orthodox, because they both say, well, they're the church because they're the salvation. If you don't go there, well, then you're a third temple. You're not Christian, you're a Messianic Jew, because the only thing you're doing is that you're replacing the Messianic Jewish third temple with your own institution.
Hmm.
But that's not different. That's the same thing.
Interesting.
And so
Interesting.
what Joseph actually said, which in the restoration, which is the claim, is that it should be by an election made sure, which even the members of our own church haven't said that all of this time since Joseph Smith. And so
Yeah.
this is being re-injected for the first time.
Can you say that? Can you say that again? That
So
part again in regards to what Joseph Smith said.
So Joseph Smith, the entire claim, the entire premise of Joseph Smith is that you should have your own sacred grove. You guys know that from primary,
Yeah.
right? Your own sacred grove by revelation. And then in Joseph Smith's personal works, everything relates back to an election made sure. And Connor Boyak's last video actually builds on this as well. So I guess I should send you the debate because I think all of these kind of build up on that. But Connor Boyack just also made the last video he just posted was also where he's like, wait, Joseph Smith and Oliver, all these people are saying that like you're supposed to see the face of God. Even Moses said this. And even whenever a lot of Latter-day members had a problem with what I was saying,
Hmm.
what I was telling them was, these are not my words. Like, yes, I said this before I knew that I knew that Joseph Smith said the same thing, because this was on Remembrance. But he said the same thing, right? The restoration was the higher law, and the higher law, according to Moses, was seeing the face of God, right? So
Yeah.
it actually all ties in together, which even I didn't realize when I went into the debate, because if I'd known that, I would have made it much more succinct. But Connor Boyack brings this out. Connor Boyack, at the end of the last video he made, he talks about how Moses said that you should see the face of God, or that someone said, so and so's prophesying, and then
Yeah.
Moses was like, you're supposed to as well. Are you jealous or whatever? But it ties all three together. Moses said you should see the face of God. Jesus here says you should see the face of God. Joseph Smith said you should have your own sacred grove, pray
Hmm.
and ask by revelation. And then in Melchizedek in 76 also tells you you should be an election made short. So I've been consistent without
Which is a
breaking.
and it's also a huge. I mean, even Latter Day Chad brought that up yesterday in his video,
Right. Everything. Right, so
right?
everything's
And
building. Everything's building.
Latter Day Chad's talking about, you know, like how you greet an angel with your hand, right? And same goes for Christ as well with some of the symbolism within a temple. But yeah, sorry, keep going.
No, you're right. You're right. You're right. So the only reason I find 85 so fascinating is because my personal book is called Remembrance, and just the nature of my controversy since coming in. Um, but yeah, I think if you because my debate has become controversial, not controversial, but like people either get it or they don't. So like secular people and atheists, I'm grabbing a lot of them to contact missionaries, but the religious people are like the 10 virgins, right? Because they're like,
Oh, they're
yeah, they're
just
like they don't.
they're so brainwashed already that it's hard for them to like my dad's a seminary teacher.
Yeah,
He was a seminary teacher for 45 years for the church.
yeah.
And I cannot have conversations with him about any of this type of stuff.
It's really sad. Quite frankly, I think it's tragic because it's and I feel like the top, I don't know, but I feel like the prophet and apostles like whitelist me because I'm so triggering locally. So they're just like, you can't like, and I can tell like I didn't go off on like the local precedent, but I kind of, because he was saying like, so I ended up reading John 8:44 because I was like, if your father was my father, you would recognize me, but then my father, your father's the devil, the father of lies, because he was making a point about like the Jews and like obedience and like how we're not worthy. And then I'm walking out. And then I was like, if you bring another Slytherin house here with oaks or whatever, like I'm not about it. And like and then like people were just like, you can't talk about that about the press. But so yeah, you're right. It's it's hard to like I must be whitelisted somewhere, I feel like, because there's been so many times I can tell someone wanted to say something and then they just didn't. Um
Well, and even today I got yelled at by by my boss at the church because I rolled up my sleeves.
they play too much.
Yeah.
It's like
And
chew on some camels and eat some gnats. Like
and
that's where
and I just laugh because I'm just like and so like a lot of what yeah there's for a long time I was an inactive active member of the church.
a
Um
Pimo. I learned that recently.
and the reason being is because I found a lot of this stuff, and you might be familiar with it as well, with Joseph Smith not practicing polygamy at all, with still Mormon, right?
Yeah.
And so like I had to chew on that for about 3 or 4 years. And like um I was right now I'm in the young men's, and I'm the teachers quorum advisor. I'm also the Sunday school president.
Oh, I
And
love that. Good for you.
and
Well,
I
I wish.
also and then of course I work at the temple, but for yeah, from about 2020, ever since President Nelson recommended everyone get the jab, up until
Yeah.
about really until about a year ago, I was going for the sake, my wife's not very active. So I was going with my 5-year-old and my 3-year-old just for the sake of tradition. But I was really having a hard time knowing what I believed. And then I randomly met an insurance agent in North Carolina that was a temple worker, and he said, "Hey, you should really work at the temple." And so I started to work at the temple, and it's been a life change. But I'm still trying to morph some of my beliefs, like Joseph Smith and him not practicing polygamy. Because do you believe that? I mean, you've looked into
I
it,
don't think he was a
obviously.
polygamist. I think it was always a lie. The reason I think it's become such a problem for the church, and like like it's like I can solve anything for the church, but I cannot help them walk through that. Like that's the one thing
Yeah,
I cannot do. But
yeah,
no, I don't think it was a polygamy, and I think that's where the church went into quote unquote condemnation, because I think the daisy chain of the polygamy narrative fundamentally changes the nature of God. Because the reason polygamy could not have been commended is because the etherization of the blood of Christ, uh, you and the issue with false doctrine isn't people agreeing with me. The issue with false doctrine is that you will not make sense of anything at all if you have something that is fundamentally divergent from natural law, right? So if you believe in the polygamy narrative, then you will
hmm
not understand the etherization of the blood of Christ because you're stuck on this arbitrary, like God can just like change his mind. And it also, divine
yeah.
command theory is fundamentally false. And so
What
one
do
of
you
the
mean by
last
that?
divine command is it's not true, it's false.
What is that? I don't know what that is.
Well, I'll explain to you with what
Oh,
I'm about to
divine
say.
command. Okay, yeah, go
Divine
ahead.
command that you're
Yeah,
commanded, that you do
that
things
makes
because you're
sense.
commanded.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because so one of the last things that I saw by revelation, prior to joining the church, and it didn't make it to remembrance, was the word of wisdom. But the word of wisdom, as I saw it myself as well, was not to be by commandment. And to make a very long story short, you want to have your baseline reality, you want to have your baseline emotional state as pure as possible so that you have the cleanest reception. Like, so your Wi-Fi connection, your
Hmm.
antenna is
Yeah.
properly situated. And the reason you want to be quote unquote celibate isn't because of some mortal, isn't because someone's gonna beat you over the head. I mean, look, you should stay that way. I wouldn't encourage someone to go out and do what the Mormon wives are doing, that quite frankly beat out the gays any day of the week.
That
But
was the Mormon
um
house, the housewife Mormons, whatever.
yeah, it's like
Yeah,
they're on ketamine with 10
that's
guys in a
terrible.
day. I'm like, they're
Yeah,
out doing the gays all day, every day. They give West Hollywood a run for their money over there.
yeah.
Um,
But not like with a run.
like like it's like they even negotiated with the Lord. They said, I'm gonna get a prescription of ketamine for microdosing, and then we're gonna be like the gays didn't even figure that out. They like good for them.
But I,
But the idea, do
yeah, go
what?
ahead. No, go
Oh
ahead.
no,
Go
but
ahead.
the idea of it is that it is your energy life force. And if you look even at medical, right? You look at a hospital, they have this snakes going upward, which is the esoteric
Hmm.
nature of your Kundalini energy. It is the
Yeah.
source energy of your life force. And if you can retain that, it moves up like the snakes would suggest in
Hmm.
the hospital, which is pharmakia, right? It's all, well, that's a whole other thing, like how this is all an occult ritual. I'll get into, but it's all so that energy then becomes the very essence of your revelation. So it becomes the life force by which the batteries by which you can have in a way an election made short. And that doesn't change if you are like married or unmarried, right? Like
Yeah.
the life force still has to use, it has to still work its way up. Like,
A column of light, right? Like it's still
right,
gonna be
right.
there. Yeah. Yeah.
Married or not married, if you ejaculate, is going to circuit break that upward momentum, right? Like it's not,
Uh-huh.
and so it's important to understand that, and it's why it wasn't supposed to be my commandment. I mean, at the time, I wasn't even baptized, right? So like,
Yeah.
I would drink smoke, the whole thing, not
Does
smoke,
this
but
come through? Did this come through dream, through like sitting there through vision? Was it through feeling? Was it through thought?
so for
I'm
me, it would
curious
just,
how you receive that revelation.
so I think, and I posted about this a couple of days ago, but I think because a lot of people would say like, why me? Like, why me and not them if they've been church members,
Hmm.
or all of that.
Hmm.
But I also feel guilty a lot of times. Like, how come? Like that is true. Like because like why me and not the next? And I honestly God think is because I was willing to pursue the most bizarre request, right? Like running for
Hmm.
office. But all that all all that to say, I think that it was because I always noticed that even more relation would come the moment I hit live on a screen. So I think it was just doing the work. I think it was because I was willing to like literally do the work of like, okay, I'll hit live stream and then from God through me, and I don't even know what's gonna come out. And that's when I received the most. So I think if I had to guess, I think it was the willingness to quote unquote preach my gospel. Because if
Yeah.
if that's kind of like the ritual or the motive that I was going into it, like, live stream from God through me, and this like, and then stuff would just come up and come up, which the same can be construed by like Joseph Smith, right? I think most people like
Hmm.
the moment you decide to put the pen to paper or
He
the
just started
button.
writing down Doctrine and Covenants, right? Like
Right,
it was
because
all
because
just
it'll just, if you're doing the work,
it's
I
just
think it'll
flowing.
just
Yeah.
show up and show up and show up. So
Yeah.
I have to guess, I think that's why. So I think a lot of it would just be, at first it was a light storm of revelation. So it did start off with, so in Kabbalah, like if I grab these, so like this is actually like all in Hebrew, right? So, and I don't speak Hebrew, right?
Yeah.
So one day in Kabbalah, not speaking the language, the ideology was that you kind of like you pray these words and you like scan the Zohar, and then revelation will come to you. And so as I was scanning the Zohar, it started glowing at me one day in what I could only describe was in the appearance of gold. And even in my very first video, because I've had like I guess phases of revelation. At first, it started with like well, you actually know that did start my channel, right? But that wasn't when I had the seeing
Is
Christ
that
experience,
like a
Joseph.
YouTube? Is that a YouTube channel or your channel of? of
That was no, that
Revelation.
was my YouTube channel. That was oh, because I went from finance and I'm performing Bridgewater to like dropping everything and then going into this like psychic medium tarot, like, and people were like, "What the heck?" But also they couldn't look away because like, how do you go from outperforming Bridgewater to like the tarot and then but one so that started so in my very first video I even say like it came to me in the appearance of gold as I was scanning the Zohar. But then the two figures, and I'm not saying Joseph Smith saw the exact same thing. I mean, it reads like he did, but
Yeah.
was one day I was looking out. I was like looking out in the sun, and then I cannot even describe it. But then what ended up happening it was like it almost seemed like rays, like sun rays when you squint, and then what? But these were like massive, massive, like beams of ray. It's almost like what would hold together. Like the best way I can describe it is like the thing that holds up a tower, like those like but it was like it
Hmm.
was just a massive, massive beam. Um that was like a ray, but it was like a massive beam, and it was almost like glowing like the sun. And by that what I mean is like if you look at the sun and you can't look at it for too long, it's like
Hmm.
that kind of beam at the center. But it was and with it came this like overwhelming what I would for the first time feel was like love. And like in that moment, I knew it was Christ. And the reason I say that is because up until that point, what I thought was love was anxious attachment. But because I didn't know anything else, I thought it was love. So in that
Yeah.
moment, it like fundamentally like shook the world from under me. And that's the moment that I would say like that's when I saw two figures. One of them was evidently Christ for sure. And the other one, the other one I've not thought about too. It's weird, right? Because I saw two, and even just now I'm thinking, who was the other? One of them was Christ for sure. I to this day couldn't tell you. Maybe it was like a Peter because I don't get. Maybe it was a Peter because I don't get like, and even I'm getting chills on half of my body. I don't get God. Like I wouldn't say. I would say that I've maybe come close to seeing the face of God, like sun gazing, but that was Christ, and I don't know. Maybe it was, I don't know, but maybe it was Peter, and that was the moment when. So I think the revelation, the appearance of gold that first derived like the quantum entanglement, internal marriage, um, alpha and omega, first law of thermodynamics, and like all of that was separate from the moment of Christ. And so I feel like first I saw my feeling is that first I went through um like Moses and the God of Moses, which I and even that I think it's interesting because I do think they're slightly different. Well, rather I would say I think Christ has jurisdiction of our solar system. And I think is slightly different than I do think it's almost like he inherited our solar system because I know the God of Moses, and it's a very because when I was before I became Christian, when I was still in Kabbalah, um, I got intense revelation of law, and I challenged. I have all kinds of lawsuits against the government, and I've won every suit, but I've had all kinds of suits, and those were very Moses derived, and it was like an intensive justice, and I got electrokinesis. I could manipulate it. Like there was so much that I could do outside of my body that I was like for
Uh-huh.
sure God like the entire quadrant of on a live stream. I was like, and then I can like one of them was I was like, I know I can feel like connected to even the electrical system and like making the lights go off. And in that moment, the entire Melrose to Santa Monica to San Vicente and Doheny, that whole quadrant, the lights just went out. Like in that moment
Really?
on a live stream. So I would say that carried on with me until the moment of Christ. And then that fundamentally like changed that entire art. Like that changed everything. And
How
it's
did you
not that
find how did you come to the conclusion that it was the more, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that that
so
to where reside?
so after I saw Christ, I wrote Remembrance. And
Which I'm
then
gonna read that book, by the way.
Thank you. I think I pulled it off, but it might still be there because the second one is in Q, and that's the one that it reads like the one in Nephi because DNC 85 talks about the Book of Remembrance. And before I even read it, because I read 85 recently, before that happened, I started writing the second. I wrote that one in like 3 days. I started writing the second one, which the cover.
What?
Wait,
Wow.
yeah. So then the cover of the second one, is in chains. It's sealed. And I wrote the first page, and then it was like I cannot write anymore. I'm supposed to shelf it. And then, but I filed remembrance by under the Texas state. And after that is when I was like hypnotically drawn to go to Latter-day Saints before I scaled remembrance. Um, so this is the cover of Remembrance, and I don't know if you can see it too clearly, but the second one, which came before I even joined the church, it has
It-
the 72 names of God in gold lettering, which
yeah.
doesn't totally come across. And then he's got the chains behind Remembrance, and then it's got and then it says Resurrection. And then I wrote the first page, which is this one, but then I didn't write past. I think I wrote two more pages, but then I didn't write past this again. And then I was baptized into Latter-day Saints. And so this was on my birthday on 23, which was when the Christmas devotional, it was in 2023. And then the Christmas devotion in 23 starts with remembrance. If you remember correctly, it starts
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
a prelude about remembrance, and then it closes with Elder Gong saying, "Let's start fresh, like from the beginning. Like, when do we reflect about like starting over? So let us start over, or what have you." And then that kind of so then I've been kind of like in the shadows in a way ever since, not on purpose per se, but like I stopped doing a lot of the spiritual work because I had run for office, and then like I had the best, like I thought like there's been 5 times where I thought I retired. Um
Good for you.
when well, but then God was like, actually, you're gonna do this one thing again. The first one was with trading. And then it was when I was asked to suspend it for this work. And then it was on my last video that I suspended it for this work. I made like $1,000 in donations on that one live stream video. And I thought I was gonna live my best life ever. I lived in West Hollywood, had my dream car, the dream apartment, and now I made
Yeah.
$1,000 on my first video on like Revelation, right? On Remembrance by just donations alone. And I was like, oh my God, I'm good. And then it was actually, you're going to run for office now and in a different state. Like it. So then that happened. So then I stopped doing those videos because I was running for office. And even though I ran for office on the free will tenant, and if there's no longer a nation that can preserve the free will of humanity, then the entire human experiment fails to exist. And so the only way to stop that is to inject this into the political discourse. And even though I have no money at this point again because I walked away from trading, um, and I stayed that way, I am going to reveal all these truths in a political context and then ejects it on the media corridor. The media corridor in response is going to red pill the whole world. So then that happened, and then I made BlackRock famous, the Federal Reserve margin call thing go viral, and then this eternal marriage
Was that on
claims.
Twitter then?
It was
Where
on
you
Twitter then,
revealed
but at
like
this point it was
BlackRock and
viral on
everything?
Facebook because it started
Really?
on Facebook, and then I was like, so I'm going to inject all of this into the remembrance of the nation, right? The Federal Reserve, like the same thing Joseph Smith did. Like I didn't know anything about him. Then I ended up closing my house down here. I didn't know that I was gonna be all the way into the ballot because I was on like my last penny. And
Yeah.
so long story short, it was like, no, you are gonna be on the ballot. And I got this long revelation thing that I wrote about. Spending my last $3,000 to get on the ballot. Wasn't sure how I was gonna even make it home. I made it home. I opened up a check to $10,000 when I get here. Um, I don't even like it was like a settlement that I completely forgot about, and I wasn't even whatever. I got that check at that point. And at this point, like
Crazy.
my timeline is getting at this point because I used to be able to see like super into the future, and then oh, that was another thing. God was like, "Not only gonna do these things, but you will no longer see into the future the way you've been able to. Like the your ability to see into the future will get shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter." Um, so at this point. it was like I was on a really tight leash. It's like I can only like the margin by which I can like work on is getting tighter and tighter.
So have you always been able to see into the future throughout your life? Like,
It skyrocketed in 2018 when the first appearance of gold, or in the appearance of gold, and then it ran with me through COVID, up until the point where I could have oh, so then there was a moment in my main YouTube channel where I could have it all back, and then also you can have it everything you can have all the money, you can start trading. This is the bottom of the I called the bottom of the Nasdaq live, and I was like, I can stop trading. I can, this is the part of the NASDAQ. I can take the trade and make all the money back, and without any clawback, like meaning like I won't be condemned or anything, like cipher in the like I can go back to the life I had and kind of
yeah.
retire at this point here, or I can proceed in this work, no longer be able to foresee the future the way I was able to, and end my finances with a big question mark, and I can pick either or. And so I guess I'm just gonna go with this route,
Hmm.
and that's where um this would have been a great YouTube back and forth, but anyway, that's where
Well, it's probably recording, so I can send it to you.
oh, that would be awesome. That actually would be really cool if you don't mind. That would be
Yeah,
cool.
I can send it to you.
um and so that's the moment in which okay, so where am I at? So I am at
So
Revelation.
you had the option of either selling your stocks
Right, right. Either getting back into
or
the market, and
yeah.
this was a futures market, right? And people can go back into my old YouTube channel. They're gonna get triggers, tarot cards, a lot of things that the church wouldn't support. But that's kind of where all this started. But
What's your YouTube channel now?
it's just my first, middle, last. But there's three.
Okay.
Like you'll the obvious, the one that's not. Yeah, you'll see. It's Ruben Landed Nonce, but I think the handles RLD Remembrance. Um, or I can continue in this work. And so I was like, I was on such a high, like such a spiritual high throughout. So I was like, there's no amount of money that I would trade. There's no amount of money you could give me to trade that spiritual high. Like it just wouldn't happen. Um, so I was like, I'll keep on this train. And
Hmm.
at this point, I couldn't really see much. And part of where the timelines, I think, started to dissolve was the 2020 election. And now we're spinning, right? So that's not a blanket Trump endorsement, but that's where I saw like the timeline started to kind of, rather than being clear, they started to kind of become timelines in from what I could see anyway. But then at that point, it was like you're not like the future as you were able to see before is not going to be the case if you pursue this path. And I was like, that's fine.
Interesting.
Um, I think, well, as I'm saying this to you now, I think it makes sense because the nature of Christ is be still and know that I'm God. He's in the heart and he's in the present. So I think it had to circle back into sinking into being fully present, which the future would preclude you from. And I don't think that's a
Mhm.
lesson that I think now it makes sense. Well, I think just as of this moment and we're talking now, I'm like, oh, actually, I see it now.
Mhm.
So it's still kind of like playing out. Does that make sense? Because the promise of Christ is receive proper Christ and revelation, you have to be very present in that moment. Like,
Mhm.
so I think so then that happened. That then continued my congressional, and mind you, at this point I knew that it wasn't even about winning, right? So that's another thing. It's gonna be your last of your money, and it's not even about you winning. Like and on top of that, I was asked to consecrate all like a lot of things. Mind you, I'm not Latter-day Saint yet. So it was like there was a lot of things that I couldn't do. So it was you're not gonna win. It's gonna be your last $3,000, and you're not gonna be able to do all these things. So you know that the moment this happens, you're not going to be able to do these things. So
Yeah.
have do whatever you're gonna do up until the so then that happened. And so when I came back is when I actually started meeting the people in Texas. So I was like, well, I already paid the money, so I might as well go out into the actual like events and meet everyone and stuff.
Mhm.
And I fell in love with the people. And then because all of this kind of happened in a digital vacuum, right? So I came from trading, I was in new media, then I was working from home, and then COVID happened in California. So all of this up until this point, this was like purely on the internet, right? It was purely online. Like it hadn't crossed over to the real world yet.
Hmm.
Unless you were online, but not to like your neighbors, right? Not your neighbor that just goes to church and doesn't know what YouTube is. Like those people were. So then when I started running for office and going to the events, I fell in love with the people and like the everyday nature of the people.
Hmm.
And so this was like a new level of love because it was like I just want them all to find like love and joy in their life. And so and so then when I thought I was done with the election, I was like, okay, well now I'm gonna file for remembrance and make it. So the reason I was gonna do this, right? So my a lot of my campaign was about ending the Federal Reserve. My car got hacked and I got into a big accident. Mercedes lied about,
Wow.
well, that's another whole thing.
Wow.
Um, my car got hacked, and then I ran super hard against property taxes. So then, and this is why I feel like I understood Joseph Smith, like going into. So
The
then was
persecution, yeah.
right. So then I was gonna file Remembrance, and the premise of Remembrance was going to be because you have to be a 501(c)(3, you have to submit like all these articles and what have you. So it was gonna actually be a back loop to the sovereign movement. Because the back loop would have been the premise of Remembrance is like sovereign and free will and all of that, right? So then the nature of it would be to register your name to as a part of the faith. Part of it was in the name of sovereignty, register your name as a rather than a member in like temple records, it would be like your name, like Richard Bradshaw, as the part of the 501(c)(3, and therefore you'll be tax exempt in the property tax exemption code. So because you would be under the Constitution of Remembrance, and the core of the Constitution as a 501(c)(3 is that there is no
Yeah.
property taxes, and within its scope is that your first and last name becomes a member of the record of remembrance or the book of
Interesting.
remembrance,
Hmm.
that would then so then you'll be property tax exempt, and then you'll be sovereign, and therefore and thereby the mansions grounded, bringing the world closer to heaven, the heaven closer to the world. So your many mansions would then begin to be solidified here again, which was hijacked back in Joseph Smith's day. So it would bring the entire thing full circle.
Hmm.
But as I was in the process of doing this, um, there was like this hypnotic thing. I had even, what's crazy? And I found this out recently because I was looking at my remembrance paperwork. I filed remembrance about a month exactly before I was baptized. So I was followed by the state. And then I was like hypnotically drawn into Latter-day Saints. And And so then when the missionaries came to my house or whatever, because I just showed up there, um, they started telling me about the Liahona, and then at that moment immediately I was like, oh, I know what you're saying. Like I was like, yep, yeah. But what really got me, like the
Crazy.
seal of it, was one of the last visions I saw before the missionaries was what I called Melchizedek's corridor. And it was like a DNA chain that went from Mars to Mercury, which sounds like a complicated vision, but what I could gather from it was that the transformation of man, or the lower impulse of man, or the shadow of Mars, being transformed by way of Melchizedek to the curing of man, or the Mercury of man towards the sun. So the curing of man, or the Christ in the man towards the sun, um, in Christ. And so the DNA blocks, or the nature of the restoration of Melchizedek, was a DNA light body of the Church of the Firstborn. That at the time I didn't know that, right? In fact, I
Uh-huh.
didn't know any of this till about 3 or so weeks ago, and then I went off on Twitter because I was like, I was right. Not in a bragging purpose, but I was like, what I was saying about the church being true from a first principles basis, or not, I was right. That is what Joseph Smith is saying right here. And the whole time you're gaslighting me with some keys of like something that didn't align with the revelation I've had up until this point that made the church true all this time.
Yeah.
So, but in that though would be because our DNA can wrap twice around the solar system. So if you like uncoil your DNA inside of you, it can wrap twice around the solar system, right? So one of the first things that is brought up in Remembrance, the book, the first book, the one that it might still be on Amazon, but one of the first things that's brought up in there is like these patterns of natural law, and like in the Fibonacci spiral, even in memory cards, right? 256, 512, 1 point something terabytes. It kind of follows like this Fibonacci sequence or like this pattern. Like, and everything is kind of in that pattern. Apple being the number one company on Wall Street, for example, drawing on the genius of like Lucifer and the bin Apple by ritual. But anyway, without getting into all of that, these are kind of in the pattern of natural law. And so then the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is true in the type and shadow emanation of natural law. It's close to baseline reality or the Church of the Firstborn. But all of this, in my view, in my very humble opinion, runs into a brick wall when you introduce um polygamy, which daisy chains into then the word of wisdom turned into a commandment from the way I had seen it, which fundamentally changes the nature of God from a God of expansion and inspiration and invitation that moves you outward and upward to this juxtaposed antagonistic
Mhm.
tyrannical satanic divine command theory God.
Yeah.
Um, but then the polygamy narrative, in my view, in that kind of cultural falsity, then daisy chains into the family proclamation, which then also is, if you read Exaltation in DNC 76, you will not find marriage and children. It's all I'll say about that.
Well,
So it,
but that goes along the theory of multiple mortalities, in my opinion.
what does?
Um, the family. There's no family. Exaltation is a single. I believe it's also single experience because multiple. Do you know much about multiple mortalities?
Are you saying like, so yes, but it depends how you mean it. Do you mean it like reincarnation? Do you mean it like law of one? Or do you mean it, because even in like 76, the way I can construe it is like a healing pattern in different emanations, if
Like
that
the
makes sense.
way, like multiple mortalities and the way that like they explain it. Have you watched any of these videos here with Rob Warcup?
Um,
In the Lost Doctrines? Let me
no,
share.
so I am brand new to like, because
Let
I
me
still
share.
draw a lot of revelation. So like I don't always follow all of the channels unless we're on the
Yeah,
same wave. And I'll follow them
yeah.
just because we're riding that wave, and then I'll move into a different channel.
So like this, you're able to see my screen there?
Oh wait, no, how do I okay, stop sharing. Stop
Yeah,
sharing.
so you'll stop sharing, yeah. And so this guy named Rob Warcup, he wrote a book called, are you able to see that now? My screen?
I don't think so.
Let me try it again. Let's see. Is that okay there?
Okay, yeah, now I can see it.
Okay. So Rob Warcup, he wrote a book called The Lost Doctrines of the Restoration. And then he goes through different chapters of this book with Shane.
Oh, I love him. Yes, I love him. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was like,
So
I was like, oh wait, I think I know the
yeah.
face. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if you go, and so he goes all the way back to the very beginning where it talks about like, and what do I say the very beginning? These all work, all these videos work in sequence. You can't just jump in and watch one without really watching the whole series. All right.
Yeah.
And so I bring that up because near the very beginning, when he was like creating the creating his I guess his foundation, there's many times in the Bible in the Book of Mormon where it talks about going um going it's something like going no more out. And I'm not exact on that phrase, but what what his theory is based on his research, and I believe that this for the last 6 or 7 years because my father-in-law introduced me to the idea of multiple mortalities. But if exaltation is more of a single experience where it doesn't really talk much about family or children or spouses, if we live in multiple mortalities, I believe for us to be able to become exalted beings, it's not just going to be one mortal experience to get
I
there.
agree with you. I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I
And
agree with you. Yes.
but then if I'm still to and like and hopefully I have a good family, a picture of my family right here. We'll see. It just rotates through as I get through all these tabs. But like I look at the relationship I have with my spouse and with my
Oh, you were
three
so cute.
my three kids as maybe like eternal relationships, but the exaltation is still something that's more of a single experience.
Well, I agree with all that, and I think this is the part where they're not actually like mutually exclusive. So, for example, like, um, how do I? Okay, so for example, um, y- if your exaltation line is like, let's say one line, right? Because it's kind of the way it's construed. There's certain lessons that you're going to have to like constitute and learn in your human experience, right? And so, sorry to keep you so long, but
No,
in
I love this. I love
uh,
this, and this is more this feeds my soul more than anything else. So
I
thank you.
love that. I feel well, this is a new age that I was talking to, the yeah, so I think I'll give you a very easy example, right? Why is it a constant theme that Latter-day Saint parents keep having LGBT kids, right? Like, why is this so prevalent, right? And the thing is, there's certain lessons that we're supposed to learn as like as a soul continuum, right? And so in that example is the integration of the love and wisdom of quote unquote Heavenly Mother, but quite frankly, and depending on how deep you want to get into esoterica, the Stick of Joseph did an episode on this, but like the
I
nature.
love that podcast too. It's a good one.
Yeah, yeah. You remember the episode where they talked about, and I can't say the name at this moment, the Shaw, but basically that they lose because the cutting from the tree is cutting from like the Heavenly Mother, the feminine aspect of the faith, and
Hmm.
so that's like spirit, love, and wisdom. But but it kind of in that context, right? There's like three things that are coming up for the Latter-day Saint multiple mortality collective. Tikkun is what you would say in like Hebrew, which is like collective correction pattern that has to be done. But you can say karmic pattern, so to speak, but three things, the things that are coming up are the integration of love and wisdom and Heavenly Mother. And if you did everything right, as you were told, and you keep getting this result, obviously there's a misdiagnosis somewhere. There's multiple misdiagnoses somewhere in the chain, right? I would
Yeah.
say three subsect misdiagnoses would say I would say would be one, the demiurge, right? And who are you really building all of this for? Is it the Temple of Moloch, or is it, the idea that we all needed to be here, which goes into my personal theory of the quandary in heaven or the war in heaven being slightly different in the nature of those in 3-9 and 2-9 playing a key part of this divergence that happened here. Um, and then it goes into the second subsect would be the so that the demiurge is one. The second one, the proper understanding of love, right? Love versus anxious attachment. Not rolling up your sleeve is a counterfeit, right?
Hmm.
That's has no relation to anything at all, right? Following procedure, not arguing, being, beyond pacifist, being a acquiescent, right?
Hmm.
Like, oh, I'm gonna acquiesce because I don't want to challenge this thought pattern, whether it's true or not. So all of those would be counterfeits of love, and I think those come up with the LGBT tikkun or quandary. Um,
So why are LGBT now being raised by a lot of LDS members? What's
because
your
LDS members are having a really hard time properly integrating, properly correcting, uh, because anxious attachment and compliance is a counterfeit of love because you're in that anxious attachment. So there's psychological levels as to why that happens, right? If you're anxiously attached, you can never individuate. If you don't individuate, then you're not going to feel sufficient to establish a family. And if you
yeah.
have a very enmeshed environment, meaning that your parents tell you all their emotions and they're very strict and they don't love you as a child and a parent should, meaning that they don't nurture your childhood, your soul as a child, because they're so Pharisaic in their compliance ideology. Well, that means you would have never have developed your own emotions, because the emotions of your parents were so consequential to your own
Yeah.
that you made your parents' emotions take precedence over your own, and therefore never developed the constitution to hold another person's emotions, especially for the boys in this case. So, having never developed a proper understanding of love versus anxious attachment, you will consider anxious attachment to be love, having no other context. And
Hmm.
because you have no emotional development and no one ever holds space for you, well, you're going to seek that in something that is opposite to what you were raised in, and presumably also then the same sex, right?
Yeah.
And so then the third prong, ultimately, I think it relates to a couple of, I mean, I think it relates to a couple of really important things. One is like the proper understanding of love. And and the irony is that if you properly understood love, you wouldn't have the LGBT issue in the first place, right? So it's almost like self-perpetuating. It's so in
Hmm.
opposite
Yeah.
directions. It's like if you have a narcissistic parent, you're gonna have a BPD child, right?
Yeah.
If you have a BPD parent, you're gonna have a narcissistic child. It's gonna ping pong. Um, and I think because so and I was actually thinking a lot about this a lot more this morning, right? Why is LGBT so good at conveying Christianity once they're converted, right? Like why, if by the fruit you shall know them, like why is this through line so strong? And I think there's a lot of merit to the demiurge. And I've even said this before I was baptized. I was like, why would I want to establish a through line on earth and then be bound to a world that I am not of? For what? Like, like for what would I do that? So I personally, and I'm not pushing, I'm not trying to make
Wait,
this out of.
wait, just go back real quick. Did you just say that if you have a narcissistic parent, that you'll have a borderline personality disorder child?
Yeah, you have to. It's inevitable.
Why?
Because so these dynamics actually played out before I was baptized, and that's when I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, that was all wrong. Because and you see this a lot in corporate America. You will see this a lot. We just saw this in the Coldplay concert, right? You will see this a lot. It's inevitable. It is natural law. Because what happens is a narcissistic parent can give you everything you materially want. And I think LDS is very good at this. Like the classical cultural LDS is very good at this, because daddy's not home, but you will have the newest car, the new iPad, the this, that, and the other. So your need for love becomes readjudicated into the satisfaction of pleasure,
Hmm.
right? So that starts with the materialistic parent. Like that's
Hmm.
where it starts from the onset. Now, because that person will their heart will be too opened, meaning that because there's no proper boundaries in the home, the child will be a quote unquote empath, because they were hyper aware of the emotions of the adults in the room, because their emotional stability was dependent on the adults in the room being emotionally stable, right? And so if that's the case, then this person has a really pure and open heart, right? This person also doesn't understand love, and this
Hmm.
person will probably grow up to be very good at whatever it is that they decide to do, right? So those three prongs will be immutable. So it is the Fallon Carrington from the Dynasty reboot that will born her own company. It'll be the health had no fury. It'll be all of that, because when the moment comes and they realize inevitably, which you should pray that they do, because if you want them to come to Christ, you're going to want them to realize the falsities of the world of illusions. Inevitably, when they realize this, they will also realize that the values of the high performing narcissistic parent were also a counterfeit. But as far as why the BPD develops because they have a very pure heart, they have a very open heart, they are hyper aware of another person's emotions, and they're going to have the predisposition of being attracted to a narcissist because they don't understand love. And so then the inevitable conclusion will be
Man.
the high powered corporate executive in the picture perfect Taylor Swift looking glass
Hmm.
Barbie movie. Is the Barbie movie to the Matrix. That will be the resulting output. But the thing is, the feminine is spiritually stronger because the feminine is a higher impulse in the higher octave. And
Hmm.
so inevitably it's going to be that's why in this morning I realized the thing about Isaiah in a transgressor from the womb is inevitable because the feminine, you can't change this. The spiritualized feminine will always eat the narcissistic whole twice, spin him around, spin him back out, and he won't know what happened to him because the spiritualized feminine or the BPD or the health had no fury, the feminine that hasn't had because the masculine is the light of the world, the feminine is the birth of the
Hmm.
cosmos, right? If the light of the world cannot be filled, that vacuum is going to swallow the entire planet until the light of the world makes himself present again, right? So
Hmm.
it's an inevitable math equation, and this math
That's
equation will.
and that's just so it's so sorry to interrupt, but it's so interesting.
So I think inevitably with that kind of logical conclusion, the feminine is always going, and I think we see this play out a lot with Latter-day Saints. The feminine, even though the men have quote unquote presiding authority right on paper, but it's almost, I'm not gonna lie, in some unhealthier circles of Latter-day Saints, you can almost sense the quote unquote, like I like to call like psychic rape or like psychic abuse, but it's almost palpable.
Hmm.
Because the thing is, if he cannot produce his own light, and it's a light switch, right? Because once it clicks, and then the whole thing kind of recalibrates, and it like for me, I had maybe like a 48 hour of shock, and then I was like, oh, but I'm like free, but I'm good. Like after realizing that,
Hmm.
um, but I think the that element I think gets healed and it's such a looking glass. It's very much the Barbie movie.
The Barbie
And
movie's a
like the
funny
Great
one.
Gatsby. It's like the Barbie movie and the Great Gatsby because the Great Gaslight about, I think, BPD is that everyone tells you that you live a perfect life. It's like you live in a two-parent household and you have a white picket fence and you go to private school and you should be happy.
Yeah,
Everyone wants this. And so
yeah.
if you're not happy, there must be something wrong with you.
Then
That's
you're the
kind of the
problem.
implication,
Yeah.
right? And so I think it's the BPD, I think is the halfway awakened feminine because you're like, wait, something is like wicked, right? Wicked in the garments, right? Something has changed within me. Something is not the same.
Hmm.
Um, which is the BPD transition to the Mary or the ascended feminine, whatever you want to call it, but or the Christed feminine. But the yeah, that is an overarching that in fact I would say that is the tikkun or that is the corrective process that the church has to face. And I think that's why the polygamy is gonna be the trial by fire. Like that's gonna be in my view, right? If it's incorrect, and I think that it is, then that's going to be the fire. That's gonna be the baptism by fire, and that's gonna be the refinement church of the firstborn by the firmest of affliction, and not because
Because
everyone's just gonna agree with that.
because it will be proposed and then you'll have by main leadership or will it be proposed in your opinion by
Well, I
the
don't know that
people.
it will be. I don't know that it
Yeah,
will be. I think that's why is
yeah.
that I don't know that it will be. I think that's why that it's like I think I have faith that they will cross whatever bridge they're going to cross. because they always have. At least since I've been around, I've seen them do that.
Hmm.
Um, I think other religions are I think the Catholic Church is trying to cross a different tikkun, right? Which is the different but rather quite similar, right? Because I think that stems from the dogma of rejecting a lot of the problems we have. In fact, all the problems we have in the world right now is the rejection of the feminine mysteries, right? Whether it's the war, whether it's the because the problem is you don't know where to place them, so it's gonna become a distortion. It's going to become it, it's like it's going to fester and it's going to become a cancer, right?
Hmm.
Something that's good is going to become a cancer. So I look, I think when you watch the DNC 132 that came out 2 days ago, I think it's pre I think all of us that are working from this stream with the church are all working to build an out into our work, right? And so I think in that video what you'll see is that the out that he kind of prefaces with is the running model of theory. It's not, he didn't say theory, but like basically consensus, right? He goes into like consensuses can change and it can, so it kind of gave them like, if it's not true, I don't know. I'm not a prophet. Don't take my word for it. But if it's not true, I think it kind of gives them the prescription to like begin to work your way out of it, right? You can say
Do it out of
consensus.
it.
Polygamy was a consensus, but we have new information, so maybe it's not the consensus, and we have to, so I think
Interesting.
so. Here's another natural
And
law.
so do you think, and so do you think us holding on to that history as being doctrinal is what is keeping us under condemnation as a church? I
No,
mean,
actually, not
because
directly.
my crossroads when I came across that information was really wondering, okay, so if if Joseph Smith was much more pure than what is alluded to in history, because it was rewritten, right?
Yeah.
Then does that mean after Joseph Smith that the church was under a whole different had the church fallen, you know?
Well, I
And
would say
and
even Joseph Smith said this,
where does
and
that leave the church today? You know?
well, I would say today's restored, and I think that's prophesized. So I actually don't think, and that's why I'm comfortable saying these things. I guess unless I'm wrong,
But
unless I'm thinking wrong, in which
you've been a member for over a year and you know more than I did up until, for me being a member for about 28 years, right? And so with you being a new member, I'm very fascinated by you knowing all this stuff and like you know, having all these mainstream ideas outside of what is normally taught within the church, but still
well,
holding fast to the iron rod of what's there, you know?
I think yeah, so I think Connor Boyack would make that conclusion that the last video he uploaded, I think it's an amazing watch. The last video he uploaded, I think makes a conclusion that's been up in condemnation until now, right? And I have the similar conclusion. I would say, and the reason I say that is because DNC. Look, I'm not trying to read myself into, I might be a narcissist myself, right? Maybe I'm just crazy. But DNC 85 and what I can construe kind of from the pieces coming together is that Joseph Smith and pretty much everyone said the church enters or will be into condemnation. But 85 says that it restores. Here, let's just read it, right? But I think it's
Was
something to the
it
effect of, like
was
it
it the
restores.
video was it the video A New Revelation on Polygamy? Was that it?
No, DNC 85 is where it says
Or
that the
no,
church.
for Connor Boyack's video.
Oh, I think so. It's the last one. Let me see. It's the
There's like have the church leaders seen Jesus? That was 2 days ago.
yes, it's that one. Yeah, it's that one. It's that
Okay.
one.
All right.
Yeah, yeah,
I
it's
got
that
that
one.
in my queue. All right.
Yeah. So the as the sun's coming out, I would say that the DNC 85 speaks of someone who wrote the Book of Remembrance that will come and steady the ark and restore things that people have forgotten, even the Book of Mormon. And so I'm not trying to read myself into anything, but just having had the same experience that Joseph Smith had before I knew anything about him, having written a factual book titled Remembrance, with the second one having chains and seals, that I've withheld from publishing again before I knew anything about the church
Hmm.
and the nature of my controversial state coming into it. And the Christmas devotional, starting with Remembrance and closing with kind of being birthed anew, um, and seeing how right now, me being a member of the church would have jurisdiction to the claim that um, we are the restored church as to what Moses and Jesus and Joseph Smith intended. So no matter whatever condemnation may have applied, it is safeguarded by its own statute, right? It's safeguarded by its own doctrine. It itself tells you you can't say it's fake if it told you it's going to fall into condemnation. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it can sting,
And
but it's
I
not a
and I
lie.
have felt that, and I have felt that way. It's just interesting. I have felt that way since my quote unquote reactivation that the Lord is making do with what is there,
Yeah,
right?
and there's actually a lot about that. Like I think there was another passage in DNC where it says like you forgot all of this, but God will still honor your baptisms.
Sure.
And then 85 also says, y- y- the book of remembrance will restore all that has been forgotten, or the person, right? It's not even like the book. It says the person that brought the book of remembrance will steady the ark and then will disappear like lightning, which has me concerned, I guess, maybe. But the
Oh
um
boy.
it's fascinating. Like when I first read that, I was like, oh my gosh, and also all this was so public. Like all of this was so public. Like people can go back and see where I was at and how I could have demonstrably not have been, uh, definitely wasn't a Mormon when I wrote Remembrance or when I did any of those videos. Um,
Yeah.
and then,
Makes sense though.
yeah, well, and then it also makes sense to the whole thing. Like it had to happen in a specific way for any of it to even make sense. Um, but I think with all this piece together, and now the church having jurisdiction over the claim that it always claimed that it was supposed to be your sacred grove. It always claimed to have been a restoration. And it always claims to have been the true church. And while maybe it turns out that it was not a true church by the prescription that it thought that it was, it
Mhm.
now has jurisdiction over the prescription that would have been correct all this time. So I still
Mhm.
like, you know what I mean? Like I think it's more of a sting and a shock, but it's still true. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's still, if anything, even I've said this. Like if I were to disagree, if I were to walk away, if I were to, whatever, I would never speak wrong about the church, and I certainly wouldn't start this all over again. I feel like that would be my true retirement. Like I'm done. Like I'm done. But I take what resonates, leave what doesn't. I could be wrong about everything. Um, I'm just saying that there's a lot of pieces that line up.
But even to this day, it's just interesting because there are truths that are being taught not within the mainstream leadership of the church. They're still true, but people are getting excommunicated. People are being chastised for teaching those truths, similar to Samuel the Lamanite, right? I mean, and
Yeah.
and and that once again testifies to me that the church is meant to be a vessel to get people to base camp,
Yeah,
but
well,
then from base camp up to ascending Everest, it's really up to us as individuals to find further light and knowledge through through what we find, and some of that contradicts what is taught in my Sunday school lessons. You know,
yeah. No, I think I am yet to I don't think I've said something like, well, the family proclamation is the one thing. So I will say, okay, so it's two things. I will say I have not seen the church since I've been a member, I have not seen the church chastise anyone except for one, and I was furious, which was Michelle Stone. Like
Shellstone, yeah,
that,
yeah,
like
yeah.
that was a mo like if I ever came to like a breaking point moment, like it was that because I was like, we have jurisdiction to the keys. We are New Jerusalem or New Jupiter, right? The bedrock of New Jupiter or New Jerusalem is the First Amendment, right? So we can't claim the keys of and violate that was the only time, and but look, I think she's gonna have a redemption arc,
I
hopefully.
think so too. I think so too.
Um, and
And
I
I don't
don't,
think she doesn't seem bugged by it. I don't think
I
she
mean, she
did.
cried on the video
Oh
where
yeah, you're
it
right.
was.
She did. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but I hope she has a redemption arc. I mean, I feel like she will, whether she's alive, whether we're here or not for it. Um, I That's the only case. And the second thing that I would say is that yeah, I hope she gets her I hope she gets to experience her ether mansion soon if this becomes the consensus. And I hope she gets to
But
experience it here. And I think
being a member of the Church of the Firstborn is in my opinion is different than being a member of the church, right? And you can be of one but not the other, in my opinion. Um,
well, I think Joseph Smith claimed jurisdiction of the Church of the Firstborn. I think we let it go. So I would say members today are basically like drag queens, without trying to be too offensive, but like you're in drag, right? Even Joseph Smith kind of tells you this, like these are supposed to be remembrance rituals, they're not the thing
mhm,
itself. Um,
100%. Yeah.
and the thing I would say is two things, right? The law of sacrifice. So I think the reason why we do and will, there's like three or four reasons why we will need the church. One is because I do think that if, um, I think we're close to the prophesized quote unquote end times. I think it's a necessity. It's not even. I think it's a necessity even if you're secular. Um, I think when that happens, let's say the dollar falls, for example, right, and they nuke electricity, I think they're probably going to do that. I think that'll be the 3 days of darkness. I think they will EMP electricity. I think
Wow.
people will not know what to do. I think people will know that the church wards will have food and what have you, and those are delegated by jurisdiction in such a way where there will be no lost sheep in such an event. Um, and I think and so then I think a lot of people, I think the church will be the only and then if such person was a member and would be kind of giving a transcription of what's happening, people will say, hey, they have food and also they seem to know what's going on. So I think it would bring, and because missionaries are so uniform, people will know what to look for when they're figuring all this out in a 3 days of darkness kind of EMP event. Um,
Hmm.
I think the other thing is the law of sacrifice is super necessary for our evolution. Meaning, for example, I there's a lot of lessons. One, it gives you great joy to really service others in a way that you're passionate about, right? So I'm not trying to gaslight anybody or tell anybody not to do this either, but basically, if the work that you do naturally gives you joy, your anxious cause, one, that'll be the cause that will at the new epoch be the eternal increase, or it will be like sovereign true capitalism, so to speak, and people will give more to the highest resonance rather than coercion and centralized control. Um, I think Latter-day Saints has that framework already built out. So I think if they do this right, it stands to reason they would be the surviving universal jurisdiction because of the framework that we've been established that's established, right?
That we've been
The
built
delegation, the
into. Yeah.
rewards, the all of that.
Yeah.
Um, I think the law of sacrifice is necessary. So giving back in a way that you naturally love and giving others that light, it's like being a candle and you don't have to
Hmm.
put on your own light to turn on another.
Yeah.
And I think the third one would be you have to ground because when you're super hyper spiritualized, I think what makes us Christian and not Buddhist is because you can lose association with the material world and forget to eat. And I think it's a dereliction of the temporal body and it can become luciferic because you lose
Mhm.
cognition of time and space. So I think
Mhm.
Buddhism can dance too close to Lucifer um, when it goes wrong. And I think it has a high predisposition to do so. So I think the actual rituals of going to church and doing all those things and the discipline of it, um, one, I always tell people, especially like people that come from the new age, that to your point, have all these truths that maybe we forgot. Well, how come you're a church member if you have kind of all these whatever, whatever?
Mhm.
And I tell them the the discomfort of discipline is much better than the anxiety of self-betrayal or the anxiety of procrastination or the anxiety of
Yeah.
slothfulness.
Yeah.
And so I think grounding the hyper spiritual state from having seen the face of God will become the role of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the properly placed fullness of time
Interesting.
kind of and if and this will, if I'm right, then this would kind of give all those answers, right? It would become the grounding mechanism and the executory mechanism to ground new earth or the millennium
Hmm.
upon all those that have now seen the face of God and are like, I can't go to work tomorrow morning having seen the face of, you know what I mean? Like it's gonna begin to, so it will take the feminine role of the
Oh,
bridegroom in that way, where it's not gonna be the one to tell you what to do, it's gonna be the one to bring you back down to earth, if that makes sense.
makes sense. That makes sense.
If that's my opinion anyway, but I could be, I
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
that's really fascinating though, and it's I mean, as you bring up the divine feminine, I mean that talks about a lot about that also in like the Menha records, and also like the divine feminine having feminine woman
Right.
having the priesthood and stuff. I mean, it's that I look forward to the day when when we can live in a society where those types of um, blessings can be realized again.
Well, the divine feminine for sure has jurisdiction of spirit, right? And I think that's why you see
Yeah,
the LGBT and the women be the ones that are, our church, right? Like it's that first in our church, in a heteronormative context. And I like, have my own like Mary, like, because there was this girl and it became a whole splitting of worlds practically. But anyway, but I think the natural nature of um the feminine keys of spirit, even in our church, I think is that it's the first cause for a lot of the boys. Actually, as I'm thinking about it, yeah, it's for sure true that even the guys that are in the YSA or whatever, the first cause to show up is the feminine, right? Is
the
getting
the girl.
married.
Yeah.
Even though it, so actually, it actually does, I think, end up making a really beautiful story. Even in its error, right? Even in
Hmm.
its error, I think it ends up making a really beautiful story because I think the only sad part is the LGBT people that we lost, the Michelle Stones, the women that felt like they weren't enough because they couldn't have babies. When it's really spiritual children, and those women end up being the best teachers that have the most spiritual children, like,
Yeah.
so I think the
Yeah.
pain of that is really hard. And I think the pain of that will probably be mourned with the polygamy death if the church elects to adopt that consensus.
Hmm.
Um, but I think it's something that maybe people are ready to let go of as well. And I think that comes with the fullness of time. But I think, yeah,
Hmm.
the restoration of the feminine mysteries, I think the embracing, I know so two things that I want to say about the LGBT. One, I think the rainbow can be construed as an inversion of the light body, right? Basically that we have a light body or the spirit is a rainbow, and the rainbow flag is an inversion of that same rainbow. With that said, I think there was somewhere in DNC that I read a couple of weeks ago that talks about oh gosh, I need to bookmark all of these, but it basically says something to the effect of, I think it's a 41 or something like that, but it basically says like, according to the precepts, like like welcome people according to like the precepts and the pains or the condition of man, like like something to, I'm butchering it. I'm sure people will figure it out. They'll figure it out. They'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so I think there is a higher octave in healing that. Now, I think to heal that, you have to do a lot of things. I think you have to purge your body of all kinds of chemicals, hormones, parasite cleanses, and things that are very physiognomical and very temporal. And I don't think, and I think LGBT individuals to this day still serve a very important role, even if they don't go through all of that process, like
Yeah.
helping the homeless. There's just a lot of things that LGBT people can do, or people, rather, people that don't have family and kids can do that others, for example. it would probably have been completely inappropriate for me to be as unhinged as I was, risking my life running for office if I had a wife and kids. Right? It's the
Hmm.
same reason I object to people saying Christ had babies. No, because he wouldn't be the Christ. And if he did, he wouldn't be the Christ because you would change the story and he would no
He,
longer be America first. He would be a neocon god because he's putting third parties before his family. So it would
yeah,
invert the story.
yeah,
The whole thing would become inverted. Um, so I think so I and then there's
interesting.
John the Beloved. There's a lot there that I'm not gonna go into, but and I think any ascended being transcends the sexual impulse, just period, right? They just
Hmm.
transcend that impulse. Um, but there's just a lot of things that I think heteronormative married people cannot do for the self material, directly material to the quote unquote salvation of man that LGBT people can't do. And then um so yeah, so that would be my very strong caveat to the higher law of the rainbow body and purging your physical body is that I think I almost hesitate saying that, but I think it's important because it is the whole truth, I think. But I still think that and also too, like if this is a demiurge state, right, for the Temple of Moloch and a God different from the God of Christ, as 844 would construe in John, then I also think there's independent merit for ascended beings not to have through lines established on Earth the same way other people would. Um,
Interesting.
because it would reset a cycle. Like that's part of the thing too. Like I love kids and I have like almost my dream come true in a way where like I now realize, oh my God, I fell head over heels over this whatever, this girl. And even in that moment I realized like, oh, it's not supposed to be, it's not meant to be. And I think we've seen that play out numerous times. But
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time too, like what I want to establish and reset a new through line here, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But I think that's why ultimately there, love your neighbor, love your God and love thy neighbor because you get into very heavy, very fast speculation, I think, when you go outside of that, in my opinion. Because
That
then you
makes
you
sense.
also start playing God too, right? Because then you start playing, even if we take everything in the Old Testament as true, you're still in apostasy because now you're playing the judge, jury, and arbiter, and now you're taking the seat of God, which is still satanic. So no matter how you cut it, judgment's gonna be out of jurisdiction, I think.
Hmm.
Unless it's your like immediate kid, in which it would be like love them more kind of thing.
Hmm. That's a whole nother, there's lots of different rabbit holes, right?
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, I think.
But I do have to get going now.
I'm sorry to keep you so
I
long.
definitely no, I love talking, but I'll definitely send you this recording, and I never expected to have the dialogue like we are going to have. I think from a marketing standpoint, if you ever get like a brick and mortar office, then that's great. We can definitely help you out. But like Google just doesn't really confirm or just Google doesn't verify like home offices when it comes to like having a marketing presence on Google itself within the map section. But um, just to end, I guess you definitely seem like you're well in tune with things. Do you have any other messages or direct messages from Father for me in particular?
Yeah, no,
Might as
absolutely.
well ask.
I'm gonna give you my number. You can call or text me anytime. Like I
Yeah,
really like, yeah. I would say, okay, I would say try to melt into the stillness of time. And it's going to probably be hard. You're probably want to become anxious. You're gonna probably want to escape, to run from that moment. And if you feel like you have to, then I would say fine, but I would say practice on stretching that rubber band more and more. A lot of pain and trauma, a lot of things are probably going to come up the more you do that. But I would say on the other side of that, I think you will see the face of God. And I do believe all the mysteries will be revealed to you once you walk through your pain, fear, insecurity, attachments. I also think that's why sin was never correlated to prophecy or revelation. Wherever that came from, I want to talk to that person. It's like there's
So
nowhere in history where that can be construed. Um, like no prophet was perfect. Oh, we can put a pin on Jesus, but as far as prophets goes, we can see that even in the Old Testament, whatever. Um, but I would say give yourself permission to be unlike a prophet and give yourself unlimited permission to be as Christ-like as possible. I think we know from the story of Paul, he was able to walk on water on at least 2 steps. So I think work through that understanding that there's another side to that. And I think on the other side of anything that's painful or that's hard to confront, you're going to inevitably get revelation because those are blocks, right? And when you work through a block, there's going to be another side to that block. Right now, as far as people, so I obviously I cannot give, and I know this is a really big, I know psychotropic issues is something, it's a wide scale issue of the church. I side with certain spiritual doctrines that psychotropics are not ideal. And at the same
mm,
time, look, your goals see God and you can see God on all kinds of stuff. We know that on all kinds of tropics of natures and kinds. But I would say equally give yourself the ability to work through feelings and emotions and heartbreak and maybe be the parent for the inner child if you're a woman, especially that you haven't been through or walked through with permission to come out on the other side, remembering that you are like the spiritualized ascended feminine, right? And I would relate that back even to the Matrix rendition that awakens Neo, because I think that's a more proper placement. I think I think an issue that the feminine arc runs into is being quote unquote submissive without claiming proper full jurisdiction of spirit, right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
think having one without the other really, really affects and can destroy the soul experiencing that. And I think if anybody is contemplating amidst this revelation, winging off certain longer term psychotropics. So, for example, like I think anything ADHD is like instant, but like the ones that build up in the brain that take weeks or whatever, I would say that talk to your doctor about that. And if you're gonna do that, work with the spirit in the rubber band behind parenting the inner child you wish you were there
Can
for.
you say that again, please? In regards to talking to
Um,
my doctor about what?
so obviously, I'm not a doctor, so I cannot give medical advice. So if
Yeah.
you're gonna talk to your doctor about weaning off those long-term psychotropics that build up and then take time to build off. I was doing the yard before this. Um, if you're gonna do that, I would say also while you're doing that, work with your inner child and try to stretch the rubber band of what it maybe hasn't worked through. And it might be emotional, but I think because women will also be able to see the face of God, especially being spiritually ascended. So I think if people realize that they may not be BPD and they may not be, depressed and all these things because people told you you don't have a spirit, right? People told you
Hmm.
submit, right? If the church is
Yeah.
feminine, it shouldn't be telling you what to do because it's a bride. Do we have the patriarchy mishmash here, right? It's not supposed to be telling you what to do if it's the bridegroom in the narrative that it projects, right?
Hmm.
So if you're gonna embark in the healing aspect of being repressed and not feeling seen as you work through coming out of a lot of these prescriptions, then you're going to have to equally, and I think for feminine, it might actually be easier, but you're going to have to work through the spiritual rubber band of that's been suppressed all this time. So I guess maybe defer to like that something's changed within me in Wicked. I love the Barbie movie, but I don't think it leaves with a conclusion. I kind of I think it leaves you back into the movie just started finished. I love the movie. I think it tells you almost all the feminine mysteries, but it doesn't leave you with what to do. And I think Wicked, when she puts on the garments, right, which are type and shadow of natural law, the garments in the temple, right? Something changes within you when that
Hmm.
happens. Um, and and you're gonna get things wrong, right? Men and women that are starting to work the spiritual muscle of prophecy and all these things, right? The faith, the Church of the Firstborn, you're gonna get things wrong. Like it's gonna be hard for at moments to discern between exuberance and Christ. You're gonna probably have to walk through Lucifer and discern between an excited mind and the Holy Spirit burning of the book. Like it's gonna have its own learning curve, but it'll be, in my opinion, the most beautiful true learning curve or embarkment or the premortal contract that I think we all worked all this time for to get to this point
Makes
of the
sense.
fullness of time.
Yeah, that makes sense. And thank you for that. I took some notes down and a lot
I
to
love you. I love
a
talking
lot
to you.
to gather.
Like I yeah, you yeah. Caller
What
type.
ma what makes you say that?
Just even just the way like a lot of things work, right? Just the way like how the conversation started, how I think like this is kind of like a running joke that like Latter-day Saints like just exude like this radiance or whatever. And also like they're very good looking. Like would it have like everything about how it happened, like would it have happened? Like, three like all these things that kind of like play a part into like evolving in this way. Um and I also too like even going back to insurance, right? Just to like close it all off. Like what if anything ever inspired me to go back into neoliberalism is how much I love the missionaries. And I'm like, and then I'm like, oh my
Hmm.
God, the things you've been told. I was like, maybe if we put under the banner of a brokerage, then I can inject all of this wisdom without stepping on anybody's toes or waiting for the church to do it. So I think a lot of it will. And also too, right? You have to think too, like man in the masculine impulse is creating its own timeline, its own universe, and its own masculine ether. So a lot of how this develops from here also begins to merge again free and divine will, right? Because like
Hmm.
the system doesn't have to fall. Right now, all signs indicate to the fact that it has to be only because it seems like we're still supporting the synagogue of Satan despite
Yeah.
all signs otherwise, right? But it doesn't have to, right? And I think each individual, especially your arc, especially the ones that are trying to make this work and figure out like like maybe it's onto you to save uh, I think I brought a lot of the spiritual aspects of the political discourse and business to its logical conclusion, but maybe you guys have the keys of how to keep it without a full 3 days of darkness and a full dark night of the soul, and
Hmm.
maybe somewhere in your respective arc, um, you will help make a lot of these works survive in the way that I think can still because all these end time stuff happens by logical conclusion. Like there's a lot of warnings that are given over and over and over again, right? To the church, to the layman, whoever, right? Like,
Hmm.
right. And the problem is that no one kind of like I always tell me like I want to be wrong about everything. So all this to say, like, don't fully give up. Maybe it's on to you to save it somehow. Maybe you'll get some revelation as to I don't know who you know. I don't know, but I think if you really want to save something, and if you think it's worth saving, I think you still can, right? The dollar hasn't fully fallen yet, and all that hasn't fully happened.
It's true. That's true. We're not there yet.
That's just I look. Part of me is like a part of me. The only reason I'm ready for it to end is because how anxious, how just heavy it is for everyone. But if you can make it otherwise, you know, let's do
Yeah.
it.
If we can make it lighter for everyone without having to go through the tribulation, then sure. Hey, let's do it. But
Yeah, I think so.
I'm good. So with that debate, is that the one with Andrew Wilson?
The one you're talking about between me and the debate. Where do I find this debate? I think if you go to hold on.
Is this it right here? Let me share my screen. You can maybe see it. Let's see. I was
And
just
by the way,
looking.
I'm not saying that everyone else took notes from my debate. I'm just saying like what I saw thereafter was I would say definitely see this one looks like a crop version because it wasn't 44 minutes. So I would say go to the one Ruben not to debate. Put in go type in what is it called? Raging Tomato, I think it's called. Yeah. The Raging Tomato, click on that. And then on video, on live, under live. So on the top of categories, on the categories, you'll see home video live. It's that one with the second row beneath it. Yeah, that one with me on it. Debate, the one in between,
Oh,
next one
sorry, I
next.
can't.
No, you're hovering over it. It's there you go.
This one here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I'll add that to my playlist to watch later. Perfect. I'll have to watch that one. I'm excited to kind of see what. Well, that's 2.5 hours. Wow.
I know. Honestly, look, you can watch the whole thing. I think you get out the whole thing after the first openings because the claim of whether Joseph Smith is a prophet or not is based on a false premise, and then like nuke that on the off the top. So then I have to fill 3 hours. But people get confused.
Dang.
It's interesting. I'd love to know your thoughts afterwards. But yeah,
And what's your cell phone number? I'll text you.
yeah, it is 409.
Okay, I just texted you there. So you should get that. You can send me over stuff you learn about because I'm always hungry.
No, for sure. I will save your number and then you can yeah, you can text me, call me, whatever, anytime. I love that I make my own schedule. I want to keep it that way for obvious reasons. But yeah, absolutely. Think I got your
And
text. And then
Ruben Dante. And
uh
what part of Texas are you in?
Galveston County,
How far is that from Dallas?
like 3 hours. So I'm gonna be in the
Okay.
YSA. I'm gonna be at the YSA thing.
When's that?
There's gonna been like 1 or 2 weeks from now in Dallas. It's like 3 days.
Interesting, because I'll be in Dallas. I'll be in Dallas on. Let's look at my flight here real quick. I was gonna say if you're at the YSA thing, we could connect there, but we'll just have to see if timing
Yeah, I can meet you
aligns.
in Dallas. Like I love that I can just take off whenever I want.
I fly out on the 12th of August,
That is the day. That is it is August 11, 12, and 13. Oh my gosh, dude, that's wild.
and I'll
That's
be there. I'll be
wild.
there. So I'll be there Tuesday. I'll probably be open that evening to go to dinner and hang out if you
Yeah, that would
want.
be
And then
awesome.
I probably won't have a car. I'll be taking Uber around, but we got each other's numbers, so we can definitely reconnect then. All right,
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. See, you
Ruben,
can't make this up.
you really can't. You're a stud though. Thanks for your knowledge. I feel like I just got download, so thank you.
You as well.
It's amazing. We'll keep in touch, all right, man?
For sure. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great
Yeah,
rest of your day. Yeah,
you
send me the
too.
videos whenever you get a chance. Thank you.
Yeah, I will. Do you want me
Thank
to send it to your email or to it's gonna
you. can do
pull
an
up.
email or you can do a drop file. I don't know how big it is. You can do it whatever mechanism is easiest for you. You might have to do a Dropbox. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Will that just be to the email that we have was just the RLD
Yeah,
at
or
Capital
R period. I
Endeavor?
can text you, but
Yeah,
depending on
text
the
me your
price
other email
file.
so it's not.
Yeah, well, I mean, that won't work. That goes direct to me. It's like a full on, but let me see. R period, L period. Oh my God, we're gonna have a hoot with this one.
Maybe, and then maybe we can get Shane on the phone and have him do an interview with. No,
Now, you know him? I feel like,
no, I
oh,
don't. But you emailed him, right? So what was that all about?
oh, I emailed Seth too.
Seth?
I emailed him. So hold on. It was something about the Church of the Firstborn. So, you know what though? I feel like maybe this video, people will be, it'll be, yeah, I'm excited for the future.
What I don't know what that means.
I think it'll be fun. No, I mean, we can always go live whenever. Look, my honest belief that the best leads will come from your anxious works, and then people will want to support whatever it is you do to support
Mhm,
your not. I keep saying that your anxious cause, but
mhm.
yeah. Anything you need, anytime, call, text me anytime, and yeah, I look forward to whatever.
Okay,
Definitely in
perfect.
Dallas. I'll see you
Okay, perfect. Thanks again, Ruben. We'll keep in touch, all right? We'll see you.
for sure.
Goodbye.
Bye, bye.